Have you heard Easter bunnies are making podcasts now? Well, to celebrate this, we're offering 25% off your first month of a Headstuff Plus monthly plan or annual plan with the code EASTER. Get ad-free listening and bonus content from all your favourite shows, including Young Hot Guys, Shite Talk History, Your Internet Boyfriends, The Lovely Show, and more. Sign up before Friday 10th of April at headstuffpodcast.com/Easter and use the code, yes, EASTER at checkout. You can cancel anytime with no commitment. That's headstuffpodcast.com/Easter with the code EASTER.
This show is part of the Headstuff Podcast Network.
This is an episode about Patrick Pearse.
Pádraig Mac Piarais.
Pádraig. Yeah, it's funny how they all their names are just James, and they all change them. This is the late 1800s is the great name change for Republicans. But this is we're going to do this. This is going to be a deep dive into Patrick Pearse. It's April, which means it's 1916 time, and as we all know, the 1916 revolution was the only historical event of any importance that happened in the history of Ireland.
Yes.
It's getting a lot of people are getting a lot of AI is being put through its paces basically around this time of year for all of the various patriot groups in the country. I've seen so many videos of Patrick Pearse walking out of the GPO with like a gun and a torch and a flame. He's
I've gotten very lucky. Unlucky. I've not seen any of this.
There's no more a match made in heaven than like people's data on Facebook and AI. Using AI to generate what we think of when we think of the 1916 Rising. But let's take a look at actually Pádraig Pearse, the man. Broadly speaking, there's the 7 signatories of the 1916 proclamation. Actually, very broadly speaking, in Easter of 1916, we had a little thing here called a rebellion. And we went up against the British. And you've got the 7 signatories: Thomas Clark, Sean McDermott, Thomas McDonough, Pearse, Eamon Cant, James Connolly, and Joseph Plunkett. And then there's other, obviously big figures involved in commandant roles and the organising and such. Broadly, I think they can all be categorized. There's 3 categories. This
is your Irish history tier list.
This is my
instead of 4, you're only doing 3. This is going to be controversial.
No, I think you can categorize them all.
But then do you have a goat? Do you have a goat status?
Every time you read into any of them, it's always like, and then he was the real leader behind the brains behind the operation. They're all the brains behind the operation. I think they all added something to it, but again, Pearse, he's kind of the brains behind the operation. He's seen as the main. You can read into it whatever way you want. Everyone has their own favorite, and their favorite tends to be the real leader. They all have their parts, but I think they can broadly be put into 3 categories. There's the old rootin' tootin', plant a bomb under your bed, went to jail, served time for the cause, Fenians from the 1800s.
The old heads.
The old heads.
The OGs.
Yes. The IRB, the kind of tough nuts, like Tom Clark and then Bulmer Hobson, Sean McDermott. Go to Liverpool, put a bomb on a ship kind of fellas.
Yeah. They grew up and you could pass it back to the goalkeeper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then you've got the kind of socialist, I don't really care who's in charge as long as the workers are. Ploughing stars, early communist, socialist fellas. Connolly, Michael Mallon maybe. They're doing a revolution anyway, Connolly and his Irish Citizen Army, and they get told to hang on. There might be something in the pipeline in a couple of months. So they get rolled in there. But there's that wing. There's just kind of like the people who are doing it as a workers' revolution that just so happens to coincide with the rest of the things. And then there's the teacher, poet, artist faction.
I like this faction. This is a good faction.
These are the dreamers, the artists and the thinkers. So Plunkett, Cant maybe a little bit as well, and then squarely Pádraig Pearse. I think Pearse. This episode is probably going to go up as far as his big famous speech at O'Donovan Ross's graveside, but he kind of straddles definitely the IRB, the Old Fenian style group, and the poet teacher group, and maybe is the highest ranking in both of those areas. Ooh. So maybe the mainest of all the revolutionaries. But he definitely falls into the romanticized the teacher, artist / Izzy section. And we are going to leave all that square. That's all going to be for there's going to be
If you want to hear Kevin say some horrible things about a great man, you got to pay for that.
Yeah. We're going to do episode 1, early years, birth, his parents, where he comes from, getting involved with the movement all the way up until the end of 1915. Episode 2, the big week in question, 1916, his trial, the aftermath, his execution, and then behind the paywall over on Headstuff Plus, we'll be doing
episode 3. What is the age of consent?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of spurious rumors around poems he may or may not have written. I mean, he did write them, but what they mean in modern age poems he wrote about boys and his feelings towards them. What is the Victorian cult of young manhood? But we'll do all that behind the paywall. This episode we're going to stick with the early doors, the facts. So we'll look at to know a man, you have to see where he comes from. And we'll take a look at his dad, James Pearse. This is the first unusual thing, I guess.
But hold on, to know him, you surely have to look at his dad.
Well, his dad, this is the first unusual thing, I suppose. His dad is English, and very English. There's no harm in it, but I do find it's funny.
But wait, hold on, where's his dad from?
England.
Because his grandfather's dad.
You're doing what Patrick himself tried to do after his dad passed. He was like, well, we'll do an old 23andMe. I'll look into the genealogy. Went the whole way back as far as he could. English all the way. He traced it all the way back to St. George. It was...
Looked all the way back. He said, my dad never knew his father.
Yeah. He's like, I was never that close to my dad, actually. It's... I
was more of a mammy's boy.
Yeah. Well... That's a whole other thing. Maybe that's a paywall sort of a thing as well. There's a lot of some people say he was much closer to his mother. His dad dies when he's relatively young. He's about 2021. But
I feel like at the time
that's plenty. Yeah. And he is, because it's Patrick Pearse, everyone wants to pull him in one direction or another. And there's a whole lot of stuff about how his relationship with his dad was, how he was feeling towards his dad's religion, all that sort of stuff. Who knows? Maybe we'll get into some of that. But what we do know is that his dad was born in London in 1839 because he's an Englishman. Mm-hmm. He moved to Birmingham. He worked as a stonemason / sculptor. So this is where we get into the first beginnings, maybe, of
the art.
The arts. Yes, he was what I read him described as a classic Victorian. There's a funny word for it, autodidact, I think. Where he was just like a Victorian stereotype of... His dad was a labourer. He was born into like a working class life and then just read everything he could. Educated himself. Mm-hmm. But while working as a stonemason. But focusing on the fancy side of it. But he's very much like self-taught.
He's only sculpting the penises onto David.
He's only... Yeah.
He's only doing...
That's the bit. That's where the real magic shone through. But he's very interested in religion. So I think he's raised as a Unitarian. He maybe becomes, I think he does become an atheist for a while. He has an intellectual interest in religion, but because of the way work he ends up doing a lot of masonry work, a lot of sculpting work. The big businesses in churches and stuff. So he identifies as Catholic as well at various points. Some people say maybe he just does that for the work. Who knows? Again, this is a thing that like everyone's trying to push one way or another.
Fair.
But there's a fair, because Pearse himself, Patrick Pearse, very religious, gung-ho Catholic.
Okay.
Yeah. And he even thought, like Patrick talks a bit about how his dad was atheist, and it's a bit of a kind of a dirty secret. It's not a very acceptable thing, I suppose, at the time.
It makes sense.
That it's not accepted.
No, but just like if it's something different than what everyone else is doing, you wouldn't want it.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think he's so religious that
let all the lads in the street know that your dad doesn't believe in God.
Yeah, that's true. And no he does not believe in God. He does it while being an Englishman. Yeah, he's a weird. I'm not going to say he's a weird relationship with his dad. It's just I think historians have a weird time squaring away him and his dad. They're very different people. Which I don't know, has that ever happened before in the history of fathers and sons? But there you go. But He's a big religious nerd. I don't know. He spends a lot of his time like reading biblical stuff and doing research into religion. And he's very much in the religious world because of his work in churches. And he knows his stuff.
Gotcha.
Which could be just for business, but who knows?
That would make sense. Because Gaudi, say, was very religious.
Yes.
And that's why he took no money so he could work on the Basilica or wherever it is in Barcelona.
Yeah.
But whereas this guy is more... I need the money to keep coming in.
Yeah.
So I'm going to...
And I do, I love, he's big into the artist side of it, but...
Because the churches...
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Very nice. We were talking about one, the John's Lane Church on Thomas Street, is he did some of the stonework for there's like stone statues in the top of it he did.
Yeah.
But this is there's not a whole lot of funny parts in this story, so we'll take the comedy where we can, I guess. He worked for a company called Hardman & Co., which is pretty funny, of Birmingham. North of England industry brummies.
It's perfectly normal.
Working for a company called Hardman & Co.
It's a perfectly normal name.
Yeah, as a hard man.
I'm a company hard man.
He's a company hard man. So they do a lot of work with churches. Okay. And he moves to Ireland to work for the Dublin division of Hardman & Co. In the 1860s. So, as you know, after the 1850s, neoclassical, that's out as an architectural style. Gone. Oh, it's the old ways. Now, neo-Gothic. Everyone wants weird North Germany looking churches, I guess. So a lot of work for him in Dublin in the late 1800s. So that's where he kind of sets himself up. And he meets Susan Emily Fox, and they get married in 1863. They've got one son, 3 daughters. 2 of the daughters die early on in childhood. I'd read some stuff that he might have thought or was led to believe that the children died because of neglect from the mother, but they die in close enough proximity to each other. It could just be infection. Unclear.
Interesting. Weird that he would be around at the time and be... It's like, the way that kid died?
Yes.
The mother wasn't looking after it. There's nothing I could do.
No, well,
That's
he's
the woman's
out.
job.
He's out sculpting statues.
You know what? He could be at home building a family.
Yeah. It's the only thing he couldn't build. But in 1873, he enters into a partnership with P.J. O'Neill and moves to Great Brunswick Street in Dublin.
So Smithfield.
No, that's a different Brunswick Street. I won't give away where this story is going, but Great Brunswick Street is now better known as Pearse Street.
Oh, that okay.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Oh, I know that as well.
Yeah.
It's the Pearse Centre.
Yeah. The Pearse. It did.
Anyway,
it did take me a while. I was reading through this whole thing, and I saw a picture of the Pearse Centre. I was like, oh, that's where. All right, yeah. Yes.
What are the odds?
What are the odds? God damn. Yeah, so Great Brunswick Street, better known these days as Pearse Street. That's where he's setting up the family house and shop. So this is where he runs his stonework out of. So Emily dies a couple of years after that, 1876, from meningitis. He doesn't let that slow him down, though.
And no one questioned whether it was neglect from her husband.
Well, yeah, she dies of meningitis. He suspects neglect.
He turned around to the kids and went, "You're not looking after your fucking mother."
Well, this is a little bit of a giveaway. This is his first family. This isn't Patrick's mom. He has an odd relationship with. So they have 4 kids. 2 of them die. The other 2, and his relationship with that first son is a bit odd. He's also a stoneworker, but we'll talk about that when it comes to it. But this is a tragedy. He's got 2 young kids. He's got the house. He's got the business set up, but the mother's dead. A lot of men, this would be a defining moment in their life. They'd fall in on themselves, but not our James. Doesn't let it slow him down. He goes down to the local shop where he buys his daily newspaper, and he
buys his woman.
He puts his eye on the homely assistant behind the counter. He says, "The wife's after dying. Would you have any interest in the position yourself?" And
he did not say it like that.
No, but it does seem like he just starts courting maybe the only other woman he interacts
Your first
with.
duty, help me get rid of the body.
Yeah. Meningitis isn't
honestly,
contagious, is it?
There's a stink in the place.
Yeah.
I have no idea how to get rid of that.
But either way, he's got a new lady on the go. Now, there'd be a lot of naysayers these days that would say 16 years is too big of an age gap between a man and a woman, and I'd say to them that it's better than 18 years.
Yeah, that's great. That's for that time.
For that time. He's a young buck at 37. He's got it all ahead of him. She's 19, and, time's ticking. She needs to make a decision. She can't be waiting around her whole bloody life.
He's got the best years of his life ahead of him.
Yes.
Her clock is ticking.
That biological clock is going off in the background, him, he's getting salt and peppery, he's got the job, he's got the house.
Well, she's only an assistant. She's not even the main shop clerk.
She's staring down the barrel of spinsterhood if she doesn't bloody settle down quickly with the first man who's walked in off the street after his wife's died. But whatever happens, he's got himself a new wife, and you would better know her as Margaret Brady, the mother of the Pearses. So she is much more Fenian stock than the husband. So this is more patriotic Republican national stock.
What was it that your father did, Patrick? My mother was, oh God, do you remember the shop?
Yeah, but his father fucking built this city. Yeah, maybe. It's hard to know. So he says that his dad never took credit for a lot of the work, or because he was hired out as a contractor. It's hard to know what work he actually did.
Because he didn't actually do it, they didn't give him the credit. Is that what you're saying?
No, but...
You know how main architects never get credit for their work?
Well, he was just a contractor and other people might have designed it, but he built it. But
no, that's fair. That could happen.
That could happen, and it's...
You're sure it's not just a case of he was walking young Patrick around Dublin being like, I built that?
I'm not sure
I
that's
built
not
that.
a case
See
of that? Yeah.
See the biggest building here, son?
Yeah.
Your dad built that.
Yeah, maybe.
What about this big building over here, Daddy? Yes.
Wow. What sort of a mighty man could build a house beautiful enough for God? Maybe your old father. That was me, Patrick.
Maybe.
That was me. Maybe. Who knows? There's a couple of things that are definitely attributed to him, and they look very nice. So it stands to reason he would have done a lot of other bits around the city that aren't accredited to him. The trouble with these people is that they didn't have the good decency to tell everyone around that their son was going to be a leading revolutionary.
Yes.
So it turns out they were just a talented architect at the time. No one kept record of what they were at much because it was the late 1800s and all the stuff happening. But anyway, his mother, much more of the Republican persuasion. Her, like all good Dublin women, she's really from the Midlands. So her family's from Meath, from the I think the Gaeltacht in Meath, but definitely they're Irish speaking. I know there's
I wouldn't call that the Midlands, but okay.
But the Midlands, I just mean anywhere that isn't touching the coast, which I'm sure Meath does, but properly.
Don't know.
It does, like Baystown, Laytown.
Louth, Dublin directly underneath that.
I think much like Bosnia, they secured
they've
themselves.
got their own Herzegovina.
They needed a cold water port. They did some sort of dodgy deal back in the day to get a fucking slip of beach. But anyway, she's from Irish speaking stock in Meath. Her dad was a supporter of the 1848 Young Irelander movement in the Springtime of Nations. He was a member of the IRB. Her uncle James Savage apparently fought in the American Civil War. We'll just guess what side. We'll let you figure out what
the
one.
good side.
He fought on the good side, whatever one you think was right. And then her aunt, so Patrick's great aunt, also called Margaret, she is credited in like the early part of Patrick's life as being a big influence on Irish speaking. She was a proud Gaeilgeoir, instilled the value of learning the language into him. So that's kind of his Irish lineage, or his prior Gaelic lineage on her side. Again, the dad side, very English. He sometimes Patrick would blame his shortcomings on his English blood. He would suggest that his problematic personality traits, such as shyness and melancholia, were from his English blood.
They're what?
I know.
Yeah, like. Annie, go on.
It doesn't make any sense, but
it's a trait that I would associate a lot closer with Irish
people from Meath. Yeah. Sure. But again, the lines are very muddied between our personalities, Irish and English. He describes his father as gruff and belligerent. Well, I say he describes it. This is kind of a combination of descriptions from the kids. He was around, I guess, because by virtue of the shop being in the house.
Yeah, he had to be around.
He was around more than other fathers of the era. There was one incident that shows up a few times where he built a rocking horse for the children. He didn't have to. Those are probably made out of wood. His main dominion would have been stone.
Yeah.
It's not,
It was a literal rock and horse.
Yeah, yeah, made of rock. Maybe that's less of a kind gesture, but they seemed to think he was all right.
He stayed.
He stayed. That is the main thing.
Many a man absconded at the time.
That is true, but not our James. He gets married. So yeah, jumping back a little bit, 50 months after the death of his first wife, he's married. October 1887, he gets married to Margaret, and boy, do they get to work.
Well, she only has a couple of years before.
Yeah, she's fucking again. At this point, she's probably like 21. Which Jesus, my God, she's ready for the glue factory.
Yeah. If she's not already 21, she's nearly 21.
She's near 21. So 77, they get married. 78, along comes Margaret Mary. November 79, along comes Patrick Pearse. November 81, William Pearse. And they do take a little bit of a break, to be fair, until 88 with Mary Bridget.
Okay.
So it's the 4 kids, 3 back to back.
Irish triplets.
Yeah, and then a little sojourn, and then back in again.
Interesting.
But those are his siblings. That's his main family. So the 10th of November, 1879, Patrick Pearse is born at 27 Great Brunswick Street. The dad is present more maybe than other contemporary dads at the time by virtue of him working out of the place. He's present enough that Patrick and Willie, the 2 boys of the family, they grow up with English accents. Pronounced enough to the point that people assume Patrick was English. So his dad's been living in Dublin since, maybe the 60s or the 70s anyway, but never lost the accent.
Of course, yeah.
It overpowers the Meath.
Was it a town in Meath? Was it like a? I
don't know.
Was it a more fancier part where they wouldn't have been as raw and scolding?
That's the Irish speaking part. So if anything, no, I'd say.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird, unusual thing. There's a couple of reports.
I've never heard of that before.
No, well, there's a lot about him that's repressed for various reasons. It doesn't fit into the narrative, but. There's one, it's a journalist from 1901 who says they're writing to the Gaelic League about him. He is English by training, and I don't know if there's a tint of Irish blood in his veins. So people just assumed he was English because of his accent. So that's how strong it was. In 1901, he's 20-something.
Still hasn't lost it.
Yeah, but like he never had it. He never was never spent any time. He spent time there, I'm sure, but like he didn't grow up there.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. How isn't he lost it? As in, if you pick it up as a kid, by the time you're already in school with other kids, you'd be like, well, why do I sound like...
Sure. It could just be a thing. So...
Just do a fake accent.
There was... I meant to look into this.
I do a fake accent on this podcast.
Yeah, it's called code switches. I read a thing I meant to look into more that maybe Margaret... Maybe because the other kids from his first marriage died. I guess that's how she met James.
If they had Irish accents, that'd be bad luck.
No, she's very protective of the kids and doesn't really let them socialize with other kids. That's what I think. So she meets her husband. When she meets him, he's just lost his kids, lost his wife. She's probably very wary about infection, disease. I don't know why I'm pinning like
years later, though.
I don't know why I'm using that as an example to be like, she'd be a bit different now. She would know and have seen the tragedy of what happens when you lose a child. Unlike, all the other flippant mothers of the day, she'd be like, no, hold on, hang on now. If these kids die, he'll be pretty sad. I've seen it once before. So, I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'm reading too much into that, but I think she kept them quite at home and they have English accents. That's the whole point of that bit. A bit unusual. So they go to the local CBS school in Weston Row.
Christian Brothers School with an English accent. Sounds...
I know, yeah. Their English accents and mannerisms stood out. I think they were quite isolated as children, so yeah, probably bullied.
Yeah, I don't think it's... definitely, but I don't think it's like that big of a deal. We shouldn't... This isn't...
No, I mean, it's like...
I think in episode 3 we'll get to it very quickly that he's done a lot worse things than be English.
Yeah, there's kind of... I wouldn't be that unusual. Like, Dublin's very English-facing. It's where the Jackeens are. It's where the name comes from. Like, it's the West Brits. It probably isn't that unusual that he's got an English accent. He's also got a... I can't remember the word for it. What? It's not astigmatism. He's got something in his eye, like a squint. What's the word for it?
A glint.
No. Strabismus?
A cleft eye.
Yes. So... Yeah, he's a lazy eye, I guess, or a squint, or any pictures you see of Patrick Pearse, it's from the side. There's like one kind of big iconic picture of him. Most things he's kind of facing sideways is because he was embarrassed about his strabismus. He had a squint in his eye. So with that, he's got an English accent.
Is that the term, squint? It's, and I don't want to say, I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's like he's got a
wonky eye. Yeah, none of these are medical terms. Strabismus is probably
the right one, but it's like, but a squinty eye makes it seem like that the lid is just dropped a little. Yeah, his eye is looking off. It's quite a very he's got. I say this unbelievable peripheral vision.
Yes. Now, but he's a big, obviously he's known for his orator skills. He's a big public speaker, but he's conscious enough about it that he didn't let it get photographed. What I'm glossing over here is he probably was bullied a bit in school.
Yes.
But he says later on that this is where he gained his love of the Irish language and culture, alongside of obviously the stories he's grown up with, especially, almost exclusively from his mom's side, especially his great aunt Margaret. He loves the old stories. His favourite, Cuchulainn. Loves the Fenian myth cycles, big into all that sort of stuff. And with that, he joins up to the early Gaelic League, Conrad na Gaeilge. He joins that up in 1896 when he's 16. So it's formed in 1893. We've probably talked about it in the different episodes, but there was a little thing called the famine in the 1840s, generally viewed as a bad thing. By the time we get to the 1880s, stuff's starting to come back around on his feet again. There's the agrarian movements, there's political movements for land reform, there's movements for home rule. People want more autonomy on the island. Mostly, why wouldn't you want more autonomy? But specifically in this period, it's like, let's never let the famine happen again.
Yeah.
We don't have time to get into it, but was it a natural disaster? Was it an act of maliciousness by the British? A little bit of both, I would say, but definitely, if the Irish government was in charge in the 1840s, the famine would have still happened, the blight would have still happened. But it would not have been as bad for the people as it was.
Yeah.
So they're very much if we're in charge.
Let's just, we don't have time to get into it, but we don't.
I know, but I don't think it was I don't buy, people kind of talk about it was a germ warfare, it was.
They purposely poisoned.
I
don't think
when people talk about it was orchestrated as a genocide to wipe out.
But after the first year, when they could see the amount of people who were dying and emigrating, then they could have stopped what they were doing, or done anything. So in that sense, it is. They didn't be let's.
Yeah.
But anyway, we don't have to. Right?
But that's what I mean. It's a genocide of inaction.
Convenience.
They stood by and let it happen. You can't interfere with the free market like that. How are people going to buy their crops on the open market if you keep interfering? But anyway, so there's a big political push in the late 1800s. People are getting back on their feet. People are recovering from the famine, and they want more autonomy on the island. Alongside of that, there's also the Gaelic League revival, or the Gaelic revival, where people are getting a bit more, there's a resurgence of pride in Irishness. The old folklore mythology, the stories, the language now. Especially. Like now, yes. So at 1893, you got Owen McNeill and other enthusiasts of the Gaelic language start off the Conrad na Gaeilge, the Gaelic revival. Douglas Hyde is the first president. He's big into the necessity of de-Anglicizing the Irish nation. I guess with the kind of political push for Irish autonomy and the new Irish state, there's a big question which still hasn't really been answered to this day. What's the point of being free if you still speak English and you get all your culture from English? You still follow English football teams, and every law that's passed by the UK, you bring in yourself a couple of years later.
It's a good question.
It's a good question. Yes. So he has a lot of answers about it back in 1890, which we, no point reading. But it's initially, like every group around this period, there's the political wing pushing for Irish autonomy. There's the Gaelic revival that wants to make people proud of being Irish again, get the language back up and running. When we get our independence, let's be an independent Ireland rather than a vassal of England. And then there's the third wing, the rootin' tootin', put a bomb under your car, IRB.
There's a lot to be said for it. There's a lot to be.
While we're getting the country back and being proud of Irish, we should also be blowing up shipyards. So all of these groups around this time, there will be in every... We've talked about it before, I guess, but they'll all, at some point in their origin story, have the phrase, and then they were infiltrated by the IRB. So the Irish Republican Brotherhood, the IRB, the forerunner of the IRA, this is the group of Jeremiah O'Donovan Rossa, the group of Tom Clark. This is the military faction of Irish independence or Irish nationalism at the time.
Dynamite War,
invade Canada, all that kind of crack. And when every group will be infiltrated by the IRB, I think we've made the point before that a lot of the people who'd be interested in Gaelic revival or any of these sort of Irish nationalist groups wouldn't be a million miles away. You're not twisting their arm to be like, what if we had guns? When everyone's sitting around drinking pints talking about the good old days and Theobald and Robert Emmet and Jesus who used to be a country and they took the language from us, doesn't take a whole lot for someone to be like, should we get a fucking bomb? Like, it's already halfway there. But anyway, this is
because I was thinking about this the other week of the Hitler.
Yes, and, as you often are.
And the beer hall push.
Yeah.
And how that was exactly what every country was doing. It's just weird that they it's noted as a German thing. Obviously they do like beer.
Yeah.
But you're talking about us doing the exact same thing there.
What do you mean?
So people are
man stood up in a pub.
going into pubs and then just giving a speech.
Yeah.
And getting a load of lads riled up about a different set of ideals.
Sure.
But that it's more common that it's an Irish thing. And also, he was very small. He had to stand on a table. No one would have seen him. Who could hear the racist diatribe if you couldn't see it?
Yeah, you're saying that it's weird that it's referred to as like, we know it as like the beer hall push.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
they happen in
that's
pubs.
In every country there would have been lads going to pubs where like, you know where you get lads to join a rebellion or like some form of movement?
Yeah.
Drunken lads in a pub with nothing better to be doing.
They are the first port of call. The young and the drunk you get them. It is easier to start a revolution.
Yeah.
That is fair. But this is before, that's a little bit down the line, before the Gaelic League gets turned by the nefarious IRB. At this point, it's maybe mostly an actual Gaelic Appreciation Society. Pearse joins it when he's very young. He's 16. He joins up.
What's he doing in there?
Writing poetry mostly.
Not playing Ga?
No, there's not a whole lot of...
Or the eye?
The eye, I don't know. He's just not really. He's
could be the ref.
He could be a ref. He does have probably have written down later on, but he does have an interesting line about
one eye looking for you, one eye looking at you.
Yeah, you can't get anything past him. But he's very much like I have the whole quote written down somewhere, but he's very much like he's not against English sports. He just says play Irish sports as well. He's you can have it all. He's not saying just speak Irish, don't speak English, but speak both.
Speak both, yes. And there's nothing wrong with anyone who has English ancestry.
Yeah, while we're at it, leave off. Yeah, he was constantly bringing that up at meetings to be like, no, well, they're not all bad.
I say the ones who are on board now,
yes,
they're grand. That's the cutoff.
This is it anymore. But he's mostly when he's in there, he's mostly writing. He's big into it. He founds the New Ireland Literary Society in 1897. He's publishing a lot of stuff through this and then with the Gaelic League about Irishness. He talks about the intellectual future of the Gael, the folk songs of Ireland, the Gaelic prose literature, all when he's like very young. He's putting out these big papers about Irishness and its part in a future Irish society. His biggest thing is learning and education. And I think he'd be sad about the state of Irish for sure.
It's on the come up now.
Yeah, and to be fair, our education system, he would be happy with the access to and level of learning provided. And if he wanted to learn Irish, all the facilities are there. He'd be annoyed maybe at the lack of take-up, but yeah, he'd probably be pretty happy. When he's not happy is in 1900 when his dad dies. So he's about 21.
What did he die from?
He died of a brain
neglect.
Neglect. He went over to visit his relatives back in Birmingham, and his brain exploded. So
via gunshot? Or
no, brain
shrapnel or
brain hemorrhage. He dies in September 1900 in Birmingham.
That's terrifying.
So this is where there's a lot of revision because I guess basically Patrick's trying to figure out. He says maybe he had a spiritual reawakening in later years. James's family seems to think that James only had the last rights to keep his wife happy, which is there's something funny about literally just to keep the wife happy
to the grave,
to the literal grave. He'd be like, all right, bring in the priest. She'll be fucking on my back. I'm only 10 seconds left in this world, and I want a little bit of peace.
Because if all of this does exist, I'm not listening to an eternity of this.
No. Just I'm covering all bases, but. So maybe he is a return to God. Maybe it's all Fugazi. Who knows? But when I said he was a mildly successful architect, he was actually a very successful architect. By the time he dies, Pearse & Sons is the largest stonemason yard in Ireland.
Which is, now when you're saying that, you said his other son.
Yes.
He's part of this business.
I don't.
He must be.
There was enough to look into. So Willie, his son with Mary, Willie Pearse, is the son of Pearse & Sons. But basically, he's dead. And he leaves behind a big business. There's 3 properties. Pearse & Sons does pretty well. There's a substantial estate, £1,000, £1,400 left by in the time. So there's money there. But now Willie is left in charge of the business, and he's not great at it.
Yeah, and wreck and ruin within, was it 12 years?
Yeah, thereabouts. But listen, the economy downturned. It's not his fault.
Who knows?
Yeah.
AI, microchips, the cost of storage these days. But Ukraine, that's not
Brexit, don't want to blame everything on 9/11, but it did start there.
But it's starting to add up.
Yeah, but so his dad, it's funny, his workshop had a Latin motto. It's just the times, I guess. But labor omnia vincit. Work conquers all.
Oh, I thought first. I genuinely thought the slogan was
"Set you free."
No. I thought what you said it was. What did you say just before that? It was just
labor.
One of those things. No, you were like, "This is one of those things," or is it because of the times?
Because of the times.
Yeah. The word the company logo is. Because of the times. That's
oof.
I know it said next Tuesday, but how about this Tuesday next year, maybe?
Listen, times are tough.
Materials, men, it's all adding up.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I don't want to blame the famine, but
but home if Parnell hadn't fucked it, I'd be there with the new tabletop. But because of the times, yeah, maybe. But. Yes, this is the quote I was thinking of earlier on. Yeah, you're talking about he walked around the city. He didn't know what his dad had built because of, maybe he's not accredited with certain stuff. He dies before he's able to maybe fully appreciate the stuff that he built around the city. There is the Erin go Bragh statue over what I believe is the only things I saw written that it's the old Bank of Ireland, and the only reports I saw of it from ages ago when they were like, it's an Abercrombie and Fitch now. But time makes a fool of us all. It's not that, and hasn't been for a long time. I think it's a steak restaurant called Hawksmoor. Do you know the one?
Yes, I do. Yeah, it's not the one called. It's not Hellfire, is it? No, it's
no. It's the one down by Trinity.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's across the road from the. Yeah, it's right across from College Green.
Yeah, it's at College Green. Yeah. But because
I do know where it is because I remember when Abercrombie. Remember when they opened?
Yeah,
and they just had loads of men. In great young boys, great shape,
yes,
shredded. Pádraig would have loved it,
yeah,
right. And they were just topless outside in the cold.
Yep, and that's where his dad put the statue up there. So, anyway,
one for the son.
But Patrick writes later on, he compares his dad to the anonymous craftsman who created medieval cathedrals, and describes his pursuit of the hopeless task of trying to make Irish church builders recognize what was beautiful and religious in sculpture. If ever in an Irish church you find, amid a wilderness of bad statuary, something good or true or lovingly finished, you may be sure that it was carved by my father or one of his pupils. Yeah, which is...
If there's just so you know, if there's anything out there that's not credited to anyone...
Yeah, that looks good.
That's my dad.
That was my dad. Yeah, that's, it's very, Kavna... But it's beautiful, If ever but on a spiritual level, maybe it means if ever you see something that looks like there was a bit of thought and care and love put into it, that was his father. Maybe not literally, maybe not even close to literally, but spiritually as an idea.
Maybe not even.
Every
That's
time
his version of my dad batter your dad.
Yeah. But
I feel bad because what if he actually did build a lot of Dublin?
See,
I would have to live in Dublin in a time when all the lads in Dublin are like, we built New York.
Yeah.
And he's actually built Dublin.
Now, when we jump ahead a bit, when Pearse sets up his school, there's some of his sculptures, some of his work ends up in the school. Obviously, there's a respect for his dad's work. A lot of it gets destroyed in Vatican II. A lot of stuff, I guess,
because of the penises.
But you know the way the church is weird about what statues, how you represent the Lord and stuff. I think they changed their mind in the mid-1900s and they destroy a lot of stuff. There was probably too much take in it.
So that's all gone.
A lot of it is gone. So combining that, it's hard to trace back the stuff that he did make, but then a lot of it
anything
is
he
destroyed.
did make is destroyed.
Yes,
and everything else he wasn't credited for.
Maybe, yeah. But what he is credited with, maybe his statues are gone, but he's credited with rearing children, the toughest job of all. In 1900s, old Patrick got a BA, a Bachelor's Arts in Modern Languages, Irish, English, French, the most modern of the languages, and became a barrister at the King's Inn. So he gets called to the bar. There's only one known case that he works as a barrister for, and it seems like it's almost made up for his narrative, but it is true apparently. In 1905, he represents one client, a man called Neil McBride, who's a poet and songwriter from Faemore, Creeslough, County Donegal, the forgotten county. He's fined for having his name displayed in illegible writing on his donkey cart because it's written in Irish. They wouldn't even let the man write his name on his own donkey.
At least to let him have a donkkie. There was a time in this country where a man couldn't even own a horse.
Well, he couldn't own a horse. He was downgraded to a donkey. And he can't even write his fucking name on it without them coming along and saying, I can't read the name on your donkey. What's he called? So
it's just an X.
Yeah. But it's an awful Irish looking X. There's no X in the Irish language. It's just blank.
It's on its side. It's a cross.
Yeah. But it's just a ridiculous case where he's like brought up for writing his name in Irish on the side of a donkey. So it goes to the courts, and it's Pearse's first and only court appearance as a barrister.
100% win. 100% win record. 100% win.
Loses. Case is lost. But isn't that just the way? They wouldn't even let him win the case. That's how corrupt the system is.
Was it illegal to write your name in? Did you have to have your name?
Yeah, maybe it needed to be It needs to be written for, I don't know, health and safety.
Or so the guards could.
You know what it is? They trumped up charges.
This is some bullshit.
It is some bullshit. It is exactly some bullshit.
Don't tell the boys in O'Connell Street.
No, but it's like the perfect story for his. So at this point, he's also. So that's 1905. In 1902. At 23, he becomes the editor of the Gaelic League paper on Claddagh Sulis, the Sword of Light. That's pretty good.
But so he went through the whole becoming a barrister.
Yeah, it doesn't practice it.
He could have just studied to.
But fellas, at this time, everyone just became a barrister.
Yeah, I suppose Collins. Everyone tried, or either tried or became.
Yeah, it was just like he had a bit of money from the dad dying.
Yeah, but you could just go and
become a barrister.
Like, I don't know, studied to be a lecturer. He was into poetry, and his dad was dead, so he could do what he wanted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Basically, this is it. This is the only time, which is why it almost sounds like it's made up for his but. So he's the editor of the paper that time. He writes in the paper saying of the decision of that case, it was in effect decided that Irish is a foreign language on the same level with Yiddish. So he just comes. I think he's asked specifically for this case because his friend knows him for the Gaelic League or whatever. He comes in. He says, maybe I'll leave behind the Gaelic League. There's an awful lot of ne'er-do-wells from the RB hanging around. Dad, maybe it's not for me. I'll put the head down. I'll work with the system. I'll work within the system to help, like a daredevil, like Matt Murdoch. I'll help young Irishmen. This is a crazy case. It'll get thrown out. Oh, what's that? Oh, no, the system's so corrupt they won't even let a man write his own fucking name on his donkey. Well, back to revolution to go. So he comes in for one case, leaves, and
he walks directly to the IRB.
Just puts on where do I sign? Yeah. Walks straight out the door, picks up his ballot tablet, doesn't
wig and all.
Yeah, just gone. So, now just for the Pearse fans at home, that is a joke. There's a lot of debate as to he doesn't fully. It's probably about 1912, 1913 before he's fully into the whole bang bang shoot 'em up revolution style.
That's okay too.
Up until that, he's kind of home rule, Irish revival, Gaelic side. Right. But back in 1906, he's more focused on the Irish language. He was annoyed with the Gaelic purists whose only priority was linguistic correctness rather than, speaking the language.
This is...
So get straight off the bat, there's a lot of people who are like, we have to get Irish back up and running. Get it into the mouths of the children. He's like, absolutely, let's get them speaking. He's like, well, hang on now. We've got some very, very old poems that we think they should be able to write grammatically correctly in rote form. And he doesn't like that. He wants people to be speaking the language. And as we all know today, he had his way.
That's
yeah.
Just to think how different the country would be.
Yeah.
If he, yeah.
Well, he's so
just that decision then a bit like just talk.
Just yeah. But even he himself, like he's again like big Irish myth fan. He loves Cuchulainn and all that stuff. I guess when they're talking about Gaelic revival, you have to go a fair bit back because, you know, there's the famine, but obviously before that there's penal laws and the 1700s, like the Protestant ascendancy. There's a lot of times where a man wasn't even allowed to own a horse. So there's not a lot of writing and stuff to draw on, maybe. So they have to go back for prior Irish stories. But even with that, he's saying a living modern literature cannot, and if it could, should not, be built upon folktales. Irish literature must get into contact on the one hand with its own past, but on the other with the mind of contemporary Europe. This is the 20th century, and no literature can take root in the 20th century, which is not of the 20th century. So, also fun to see that, I don't know when we'll stop saying it's the 21st century. Like at some point that won't mean anything.
No, yeah.
But by the time it gets to the 80s or 90s, you're like, well, it's the old century. But this is the new 20th century. It's like, lads, it's 1906. We need to get with the times. We need to be speaking Irish about modern things.
Because we'll never see the next one.
Speak for yourself. I'm gung-ho.
I'm a year younger than you.
Yeah, but I've got the tenacity to make it. Well, in 1907, he gets himself set up in a cottage in Connemara. And he spends a fair bit of time there. But he speaks Munster Irish over Connemara Gaelic or Irish.
On purpose?
On purpose, because I think it's a less anglicized version.
In an English accent.
Yes. But again,
he never made it easy on himself.
But it's so funny that even at the start, or the very early parts of the Gaelic revival, everyone's already massively disagreeing as to how it should be done. And like, we should all speak Irish, of course. Ulster Irish, you fucking heathen. Cut your tongue out of your mouth now and save us the hassle. But anyway, he goes into his true passion at this time, aside from Irish, is education. Giving the children education. And he believed the Irish school system raised Ireland's youth to be good Englishmen or obedient Irishmen. And there was an alternative to that. So he wants the school he did some recon work in Belgium about like bilingual schools. And in 1908, he sets up his first bilingual school in the country. But what he wants the school to be modelled after, St. Edna's. So teaching Irish and English to the children of Ireland. So he starts up in Ranelagh, and then by 1910 he moves it out to Hermitage in Redfarnham, which I think there's still a museum to him out there. But of his school he said, "What I mean by an Irish school is a school that takes Ireland for granted. You need not praise the Irish language, simply speak it. And you need not denounce English games, play Irish ones. You need not ignore foreign history, foreign literatures, deal with them from an Irish point of view." So that was his opinion.
Yeah.
Other stuff can exist.
Yeah.
Just
we're
only
number one.
deal with it through the line, which is exactly what I do because of this podcast. Anytime anything happens, I'm like, I wonder was there an Irish person involved somewhere along. But that was his whole idea.
And he also teaching them how to be young Republicans.
Not really. No. So again, people will argue these points, but that kind of comes later. His main thing is like that they should just be educated. Learn and appreciate like old Irish Gaelicness. But he helps set up a girls' school as well in 1910, so the same idea, but for girls, St. Ita's School. But around about this time, 1910, this is where, Willie, he's been left in charge of the old family firm. I don't know if you've ever heard tell of this such of a thing, where the father has a successful business, and then when he dies, he leaves it to the son, and it falls to rack and ruin within a decade. I don't know if you've ever come across such a thing before, but that's what's happened here. It's kind of going out, or has gone out of business by 1910.
Because it's based on the dad. So if he's gone, you're like, well,
yeah, it might have been trained. Well, but this is 10 years after. Yeah,
you could train him in, but he's like, if he's very good.
Yeah, it could. Yeah. Maybe it was just like the dad's once in a.
Yeah, but it's like no one's going to be batting down like Spielberg's son's door.
They will.
100%.
They will. They'll give him a million opportunities, and after a while, he'll be like, I'm starting to think that Francis Ford Coppola's daughter's not that good of a director.
Yeah, not if he was English. Not if his dad was English and he lived in Ireland.
Maybe. But So I think a lot of where Pearse's money is coming from is maybe still from the business residuals.
The failing business.
Yes, so he's facing money issues now. Probably not a good idea to open a second weird school while money's tight. But
did he have to build the school? Did the family get the contract?
Yeah, but they only do like very, very expensive, very intricate relief work. It's like, yeah, but I just need a roof. It's like, oh, by God, you'll have your roof, but only after the most ornate fountain. When you look in this place...
And it should be held up by 15 100-foot tall statues.
No, 16. When you look around this school of plain walls and bad statues, if you see any moment of brilliance, that was my dad. But times are tight. And maybe because times are tight, he starts to think, revolution's not a bad idea. Things wouldn't be so tight if there was a war happening. But into this, he starts to look...
Like all wars, surely this brings industry to the country.
Yeah. Some people will do well out of it. But in 1912, you've got the Home Rule movement is getting into its final stages. John Redmond, and again, we've talked about this in different episodes, but as a brief overview, Home Rule, the Home Rule Party, the Irish Parliamentary Party, wanted to reopen the Parliament in Dublin, and it would still be part of the UK, but there would be more autonomy on the island. We get to decide Irishy things. Again, a lot of the focus was, let's make sure the famine never happens again. But they've been pushing away at this. This is the third Home Rule bill. There's been different iterations at it for maybe 30 years at this point. The UK government, they have an election, they don't have enough seats, they need to do a grubby deal with some weird fringe party. But instead of Reform or the DUP, this time it's the Irish Parliamentary Party. So they do a deal with the British government. That means that the government can get into power. But as a part of that, they need to commit to Home Rule. So this is, in 1912, it's having, like, this is where we've done other episodes about, like, this freaks out the Ulster Unionists. They are marching against Home Rule. There's a big march in 1912 there. They arm themselves. The UVF gets a load of guns.
The IVF gets set up.
Then the IVF gets set up, and as a counterpoint to that, Owen McNeill sets up the Irish Volunteers.
I still think they could have used a different... If it's the UVF, we're the complete opposite of them. Let's change one letter.
Well, weirdly, because they don't really see themselves as the opposite. There's loads of quotes I can only half remember, but they're all like, I know that they're only arming themselves because they want to kill me and my family and the people who think like us. But by God, at least they're doing something. There's a real, there's a respect. There's that famous case I always remember, but I can't remember the guy's name, where he's a staunch nationalist, but he gives his car he's up in Armagh, and he gives his car to UVF people to go drive to pick up the guns from the long gun running, even though those guns are going to be used against him and the people in his constituency. But he respects the ideal of what they're doing so much that he literally helps them. That is
what?
Yeah, and then when he runs for election later on, people are like, "You fucking no, I'm not voting for you, fucking lunatic."
Also, it just sounds like a man who's not willing to admit that someone robbed him.
No, they bring the car back. And he's like, "Thanks very much."
Yeah, they robbed it.
Maybe.
And then they brought it back.
Maybe.
And then he was like, you could just be held at gunpoint, be like, "Give us your car." And then
no, they can't hold them at gunpoint because they don't have the guns. They hold them at point and they're like, "We'll be back."
Oh, I'm taking a big gamble here. I don't really know what a gun looks like, but your finger inside that pocket sure does look pointy.
But so all that's so this is all happening. The Home Rule movement. There's some legislation brought in that basically says that it can't be vetoed this time. So it can be delayed, but it can't be stopped. So it's basically, this is it. It is happening. So everyone's kind of getting around the idea. There's a big speech, or there's a big rally in March 1912, where Pearse is one of 4 speakers. So there's Owen McNeill, Joseph Devlin, John Redmond himself, and then Pearse, giving a big speech to a load of people in Dublin about Home Rule. He says, "A good measure can be gained if we have enough courage, but let the English understand that if we are betrayed again, there shall be red war throughout Ireland." So, a little prophetic. This is where his writing starts to become more revolutionary. So after that big rally in March of 1912, that year there's kind of the long gun running, the UVF arms itself, the IV arms itself, then with the Hope gun running, I think that's in 1914. But there's the Curragh mutiny, where the British soldiers stationed in the Curragh in Kildare, they say they won't move against the UVF if they're ordered. There's a bit of Fallout from that, some people get fired, have to step down, but it kind of sets the tone that the British aren't going to help. The Irish volunteers need to arm themselves and be prepared to have to fight for home rule to pass through. So at this time, the main idea for the Irish volunteers, they're not looking for armed insurrection. They're arming themselves to make sure that home rule goes through smoothly.
Yeah.
Because it's already happening and nothing can stop it. But they just want to make sure.
You double down.
Yeah. But
you can never be too careful, and it's not gone through enough times.
Yes, yeah. They don't want to be betrayed again. But heading into 1913, he starts to get more revolutionary, more gun running in his. So he writes a piece called "The Coming Revolution" in November of 1913. He says, "As to what your work as an Irish nationalist is to be, I cannot conjecture. I know what mine is to be, and would have you know what yours, and buckle yourself to it. And it may be, nay it is, that your and mine will lead us to a common meeting place, and that on a certain day we shall stand together, with many more behind us, ready for a greater adventure than any of us has ever had yet, a trial and a triumph to be endured and achieved in common." So you can read into that whatever you want.
How did they not see it coming?
Yeah. And again, going back to and
that was wrote in English, not Irish.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he's writing it in both though. But yeah, but he also is going back to the last idea. He's saying, "I am glad that the Orange men have armed, for it is a goodly thing to see arms in Irish hands. I should like to see the AOH armed. I should like to see the transport workers armed. I should like to see any and everybody of Irish citizens armed. We must accustom ourselves to the thought of arms, to the sight of arms, to the use of arms. We may make mistakes in the beginning and shoot the wrong people, but bloodshed is as cleansing and a sanctifying thing, and the nation which regards it as the final horror has lost its manhood. There are many things more horrible than bloodshed, and slavery is one of them." Now, notice there he's not talking about actual slavery. Yeah. Also, very funny move.
The Irish actually were slaves.
Yeah. That's only in the Gaelic version. It's the abridged. But very funny there to be like, the Orange men have armed themselves, like the UVF have armed themselves, but then keep calling them Irish citizens. The UVF have armed themselves. That's good. I like it when Irish men have good Irish men have guns. Every Irish citizen should have a gun. Like fucking.
When you were saying it was a Dublin bus, an armed Dublin bus driver now.
Yeah.
To transport you, that'd soften a lot of lads' coughs.
My God, yeah, there'd be no talk of tractor. Well, maybe the tractor men would also arm themselves. But so at some point between, let's say, 1910 and this is now late 1913, he's talking a lot more about bloodshed. He's talking a lot more about getting everyone guns. He's moving away from home rule and move towards the image of bloodshed, perhaps. Maybe he's trying to sell himself to the harder men of the IRB, that sort of faction, and it works.
Hard man, actually, funny enough.
My dad was a bit of a hard man himself. But so in November 1913, another big factor, there's the Dublin lockout as well. We've talked about this a few times, but there's no good name for this period.
And I've been saying we could name it.
When I was trying to do the Violet Gibson thing the other day, I came across, what is it? Benio Rosso is 1919 and 1920. What is Benio Rosso? Like the 2 red years for like the rise of Mussolini.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Why
don't we don't have like even,
because we don't speak the language.
Yeah, but the
you
famine,
don't speak Italian, I don't speak Italian. How are we going to get a cool name like that?
We should have a cool Italian name for that
we'll
decade.
Make it an option. It's all French and German in schools. I was fucking...
But even the famine,
this is what Pearse is on about. The language has not been taught correctly.
On Gorta Mór, like the Great Hunger. That's good. That's a good name.
That's very good.
We should have, starting from the lockout going to the end of the Civil War, there should be a name, and a better name than the Revolutionary Period.
Yes.
That's a stupid name.
The Crack.
The Great Crackening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Release the Kraken. But anyways, that's all happening around 1912, 1913 are big years, big movement, important years. You're getting in the James Connolly socialist side of what'll make up 1916 in a little while. But at the end of 1913, Pearse is brought into the Irish Volunteers in November. And after, some of those speeches we just said there, he's big gung-ho kind of a fella. The IRB people, they think, maybe this man who's been surrounded by the Gaelic League and the National League and seems to be talking about open insurrection, we should maybe tip him up. He might be ripe for convertant. And he gets sworn into the secret IRB in December of 1930.
Very secret.
Very secretive. So Bulmer Hobson swears him in. Tom Clark takes a liking to him. I guess, he's already kind of proved himself maybe in other fields at this point, but he gets fast-tracked and he's into the Supreme Council by early 1914. So he's in the Supreme Council now of the IRB and an official member of the Irish Volunteers Forces. But heading into 1914, takes a little bit of a break from all this. He goes to America to raise money. I've seen some things that suggested maybe it was for guns back home, but it seems much more likely that it was for raising money for schools, because he's still trying to run his St. Enda idea. I think he's at this point.
He's up a second one now.
Second one shut down.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah.
Like all of our favorite businesses in Dublin, once a second shop opens up, that's the end of it. They've gone too greedy. Just be happy with barely making a living in one. Okay, do it for the love of the game and then give up. But he's gone over to America to raise money for that. He goes over to America for most of 1914, but Home Rule's ticking along back home, and it's due once again to come in September 1914. The House of Lords tried to stop it, but they can't. It's only delayed from 1912 to 1914. September 1914, it's in the books. Everyone's agreed to it. It's been in the WhatsApp chat. It's in everyone's calendar. No excuses. It's happening. Apart from August 1914, Franz Ferdinand gets shot, World War I starts, and the whole thing shelved. Yeah. So, a lot of people are very suspicious about this sort of thing.
They had it planned.
Just
so we wouldn't get the Home Rule. They started World War I.
Yeah. It does sound very fishy that like you've been working on this thing since the 1880s. 4 weeks before it starts, some guy you've never heard of gets shot in a country you've never seen, and now, not only is it not happening, but actually, very good chance you have to go to war. Everyone who was about to fight to make sure it did happen, get your guns and get moving. There's a lot of talk about conscription and stuff later on, but 1914, everyone's armed in Ireland. Tensions are high. Now, the UVF people that have armed, a lot of them, they are much more inclined, I guess, to go and fight for king and country.
Yes.
The people down south, or the people in the Irish Volunteers, maybe a little less inclined. But in June of 1914, so just before the war comes out, John Redmond, who, he's the head of the Irish Parliamentary Party, he's the kind of face of the Home Rule movement, the political side of it, he is worried that the Irish Volunteers might steal his thunder or go into armed insurrection without him, maybe, but he kind of moves in and negotiates taking control of the group. So there's a Supreme Council or whatever of the Irish Volunteers. He asks to be given access or be put in charge, basically. Some part of the Irish Volunteers is against it. Pearse is part of that group. He doesn't think John Redmond should be involved. He thinks it's too soft.
Too soft.
Too political, I guess.
Okay.
But
having just only switched over to
yeah. There's no one more zealous than the convert. He's gun-ho. Yeah, he wants guns. But so he doesn't want John Redmond to be in charge of the Irish Volunteers, but it happens anyway, and there's a split. So John calls them now the National Volunteers. There's a split where a small percentage of them stay in the Irish Volunteers, and these people will be the people who were more involved in 1916. About 80 or 90 or maybe even more joined the National Volunteers, and they...
Out of how many?
I think it's 170... So sorry, 170,000 joined the National Volunteers, 12,000 stay and make up the Irish Volunteers. So yeah, most of them National Volunteers.
That's a big hit there. That's 90-something. Yeah,
huge. The majority of them go with John. When
cowards, a lot of them.
Well, I always thought that when war breaks out, they all go to fight in war, or that's at least the idea. So John Redmond,
cowards, a lot of them.
Well, because most of them don't. I always thought that they went and fought war. So 170,000 go with the National Volunteers, go follow John Redmond. When he says, "Let's go and fight for
the British," that'll do a good. They'll brownie points.
Yes,
brownie points. They'll definitely give us what they promised us multiple times.
Yeah, and for real, I know we said this time absolutely nothing will get in the way, but it's World War. That only happens once every couple of years, apparently. But yeah, he has a load of rhetoric about they'll spill blood in the battlefields. If he thinks that the National Volunteers and the Ulster Volunteers go and fight together in Europe against the Germans, we'll be much less likely to shoot each other when we come back. We'll be brothers forged in the bonds of battle and blood and such.
Yeah.
He's clearly never heard of a civil war, but that's part of his thinking. And he also, Brownie points the British will definitely sort us out afterwards if we go and help them fight the war. So that's what he does. But I didn't realize that actually not that many people go with him. So of the 170 who join him and follow him in the National Volunteers, only about 20% of them actually go and fight. Most of them just kind of are in the no man's land. They're not in the Irish Volunteers. They've left that bit, so they're kind of out of the loop.
You can go back though, surely.
Nope, they've pinned their colours to the mast. They're gone.
There's definitely a way back in.
Yes, but
shoot someone.
Maybe
Burn
they
your
were
stripes.
They were never serious about it at all.
Maybe. Well, it's hard to.
Yeah,
it's a lot of people to not be serious about something.
Yeah. That's life. A lot of people only play acting.
I suppose, yeah.
Only fucking codding around, walking up and down the streets with sticks. But then when it came time to either start a revolution or go die in Belgium, all of a sudden there's farming needs to be done. The mother's sick and the sister's unwell, and they're all gone back home to do fuck all. Just like I would have done.
Yeah, America's a grand old place to be heading.
Yeah, but Pearse, he's against all this. He's against the National Volunteers. He's against the war. He's against all of that crack. He's Irish Volunteers.
We have 12,000.
Yeah.
I was going to say honest men. We've 12,000 men.
Yep.
We can do this.
We can do this. He is one of his many impassioned speeches, but he says, the leaders here in Ireland have nearly always left the people at the critical moment. They have sometimes sold them. The former volunteer movement was abandoned by its leaders. O'Connell recoiled before the cannon at Clontarf. Twice the era of the Irish Revolution struck during the Young Ireland days, and twice it struck in vain. For Mayor hesitated in Waterford, Duffy and McGee hesitated in Dublin. Stevens refused to give the word in 65. He never came in 66 or 67. I do not blame these men. You or I might have done the same. It is a terrible responsibility to be cast on a man, that of bidding the cannon speak and the grape shot pour. So he's talking about all the other times that people fucked up. And he's, I think, very much not this time. No matter what happens.
It's starting to sound like what he's saying is, well, fair play to him.
Yeah.
Because he did go through with it, but it's like he's basically...
It is funny. He's you or I might have done the same. It's like, well, we know he didn't.
No, he didn't.
Which is funny, yeah.
But he's going to be a martyr. Like he's openly saying it, and beforehand he's writing some very flowery speech that there's going to be lads will be talking about this on a podcast in 100 years.
Like
if you know you're going to do it, because if you could write all of these all the pros you want, but if you don't go and die for it, it's lost.
We had the earlier phase where he's like, Irish education is the most important thing you can have in the country, educating the children. And then it moves into the kind of, he gets involved in the home rule movement, and then there's a bit more like, that's not, we need to arm ourselves. We need to get ready for war. We need not to be afraid of bloodshed. Now we're getting into even if instead of having an army of nearly 200,000, you actually only have 10, even if the guns don't show up in the day, even if there's zero chance of winning, you have to do it. You have to commit. So this is the final stage of his writings where now let's see what happens.
He's really geeing himself up for it.
Yeah. So John Redmond, he's gone with some section of the National Volunteers to the war. A lot of them have just sort of gone back to their farms.
That is an easy way out for them. That's there's
nothing easy about farming.
No, but
it's a noble pursuit.
It is
the working man. The working man's the real tough guy. That's not tough going around threatening people. Getting up every day, farming. That's the real tough guy. Anyway, so this is maybe again going back to what I said at the start. Where a lot of people have different opinions about who is the real leader of the 1916 rising, but Pearse might have. He has a strong claim to it. He was the military organizer of the Irish Volunteers in 1914 and on the Supreme Council of the IRB at the same time. So he's not the highest ranked in either organization, but he's the highest in both. Yes. So he's the highest person. He's got the highest status in both organizations. So he's uniquely poised, and he's also a
jewel star. Never an all-star, but a jewel star.
He can hurl and he can football 90% better than most people. And as well as that, a great speaker. He's got the publications, he's got a way with words, and by God, he seems to love bloodshed and martyrdom. So he's an all-rounder. He's ticking all the boxes in terms of... The only thing he's missing is I don't really know what his opinions about socialism are, as presumably he's pro.
And handball, not great.
Not great at handball, but he can have everything. But he Yeah, so in 1914, he's probably like the figurehead, maybe, of the organization. Tom Clark, I would say, arguably is the orchestrator of everything, but he's more behind the scenes kind of stuff.
Yes.
Padraig Pearse is the young blood, 30-something.
And earlier when you'd said that Tom Clark took a liking to young Patrick.
Yeah.
What does that mean? He didn't talk. I know he mainly didn't talk in prison.
Yeah.
But like outside of it, I doubt he was. Was he a big father figure in terms of arm around the shoulder, or was it just like...
No, but I took a liking to him. I mean, like, he was like, oh, that man can
You trusted him to work for the...
he was like, I think he was like, yeah, he's a good orator. He's high up in the Irish Volunteers. He's interested.
He will die for this guy.
Have you read his stuff? He keeps talking about fucking guns. I like him. He's got moxie. Get him in the IRB. Get him up there. I think he didn't personally, like... It wasn't a mentor kind of protege thing.
No.
His protege seems, McDermott and Bulmer Hobson. I think Patrick, he was just like, that's a good figurehead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we'll see. He gives them, we're almost at the end now. He gives them the big job heading into 1915. But last little bit in 1914, still keeping his hand dipped in the poetry. He is famous for writing the Irish lyrics or the new translation lyrics for Oro Shidava Hawalia, which we had talked about in
What should we do as a drunken sailor?
Yeah, it's a classic. There wasn't that much music back in the old days. They keep just reusing the same tunes.
Like, even saying the old days.
Yeah.
Yeah. What year was the Belfast Harp Festival?
But this is like an old sea shanty, or there's like a version of it with that we talked about in like the 1690 series. There's a version of it that they sing that's about the returning of young Charles the Pretender, one of the Jacobites, basically. So the lyrics that would have been popular at the time was about like a Jacobite resurgence, but it's from like the late 1600s. And Pearse, if nothing else, he wants more Irish stuff. He says, what about if we keep singing? It's a great song. Let's not stop singing the song, but let's stop singing it about the return of, that's never going to happen. And also, who cares? It's some English king. That's gone now. What if we sing it instead about Gráinne Whale, a pirate woman and an Irish woman?
Yeah.
So he's the Gráinne Whale version of it. He wrote the lyrics for that.
That's
not too busy for revolution to give up the old passion. But so heading into 1915, he's in the IRB Supreme Council. He's in the military council in the Irish Volunteers. He's part of the core group that starts planning for a rising back home, where everyone's distracted by World War One, England's distraction, Ireland's opportunity, all that kind of crack. He's starting to be in the inner circle for these plannings. And obviously that kind of stuff is...
Weren't they kind of always distracted by something?
Yeah.
It was an empire that spanned
but that's
the entirety of the world. Yeah. I don't think there was ever a time where they're like, they're just chilling now.
Nothing much on today.
Yeah.
But there's times where...
what you mean is there are forces that are in England...
Exactly.
If they need to go to Europe to fight.
Yes. Yeah. There's a big war happening somewhere else in the world that will distract them. Yeah. And there's no way they could rally troops to come over to the island nearest to them. Not when they're in America or Belgium. Yeah. We've got about at least a week before they come and shoot us. So let's see what we can do. But in 1915, there's a much quoted play from Pearse called The Singer. Where there's a character called McDara who people say might be maybe a stand-in for the author himself, but there's a line in that where he's saying, "One man can save a people, as one man redeemed the world. I will take no pike. I will go into battle with bare hands. I will stand up before the Gaul as Christ hung naked before men on the tree." So now he's fully into the like, I might be Jesus phase. He's like, I don't put me in the battle. I don't even need a weapon. I'll go in bare.
I was going to say, it's like bare-handed. Like, someone give that man a gun.
Now, because we've done all the Michael Collins stuff, and there was kind of there's an allusion to like, Collins, he looked at the people who led the rising and he thought I appreciate what they're going for, but it was militarily bad. Yeah. The man's a bit, is like, I don't even need it. First of all, a pike? I know this isn't a literal...
I'll use my hands that I've only ever used to write.
Yeah.
To strangle a man to death.
He's not even talking about not having a gun. He's like, I'll just go in and start swinging. Like Christ hung naked before the men on the tree.
If more lads had his...
Hey, listen,
good gumption.
We're living in his world, but you can certainly see he's stone mad. and dedicated.
You'd have to drink it's your own Kool-Aid, I suppose, at this stage.
Yes.
But because any idea, any notion that this might not be a great plan.
Oh, yeah.
There's already 170,000 lads who walked away.
Yeah. You got to be fully committed to this, and he is as committed as anybody. And we'll talk about this in the second episode. But there's a lot of
But there's no point in then his diary's found afterwards, and it just says. Honestly, if I was offered, if there was an exit now, I can't.
If I could go back, if only I could have been the stonemason instead of Willie, it could have all been different. But nope, I guess I'm going out there barehanded to die.
Well, I'd rather die in real life than die of embarrassment. Going back on my word.
But we'll talk about it in the second episode. He's very Catholic. He's very religious minded. There's a real doing it at Easter was a real propaganda move. And maybe
rising like Christ,
exactly, genuinely, because it's the Monday. It's the anyway. That's for the second one. But this is the last bit of the first episode of Patrick Pearse, Jeremiah O'Donovan Rossa. Where you can go listen to his life story with the episode we did with Des Bishop years ago. Somehow we tricked Des twice into coming on the podcast. But he dies in New York. He was one of the IRB members, the founding member of the IRB. He dies in New York in 1915, aged 84. John Devoy is another Fenian leader. He sends a message to Tom Clark in Dublin. He says, "What'll we do? Old O'Donovan Ross is dead." Clark says, "Send his body home at once." And Clark and McDonough start planning a large funeral for him. The biggest funeral
the country had ever seen.
This might be the first iteration of that, but this is the big propaganda piece for the Rising, essentially. So World War I is well in progress at this point. It's been going on for about a year. They are going to get as many Fenians into a place as possible, and they're going to get them all riled up for war. And Tom Clark says, "Who'd be a good man for Spaken? Get young Patrick in there." Mm-hmm. And I think this comes from Kathleen Clark, Tom Clark's wife, afterwards in her recollections. But supposedly the conversation went something like, Pearse asks, how heavy should I go here? The British are kind of, they're going to be keeping an eye on this sort of thing. How hard am I going? Tom says, make it hot as hell. Throw discretion to the winds. So this is where you get maybe one of the most quoted famous bits of Irish Fenianism in the whole fucking thing.
And of course,
up there
Celtic.
With, of course, Celtic, in terms of great things Irish lads have said that every other Irish person says. Mm-hmm. That's good speaking. But day of the funeral comes, Pearse stands up and gives this. There is footage of it, very, very, very grainy footage. And it's almost impossible to find because everything else that comes up is just people recreating this speech, which I don't need to see
with
that.
a shotgun.
Yes, with the same shotgun. But the footage, I couldn't figure out who filmed the footage. Maybe I'm missing the answer. If you know the answer, send us an email or whatever.
If you don't know who it is, it was actually Patrick's
it was
father,
James Pearse himself. I think because a similar thing happens with later on with when Collins gets into film and stuff.
They do know who.
They do know who. Yeah, is Thomas McDonough's brother.
Yeah,
Joseph McDonough. So Thomas McDonough is in charge of organizing this. So maybe
could be the first.
Is Joseph McDonough, because this is only 2 years before Joseph McDonough would have been filming the Collins.
Oh, you'd be going back and putting that on the IMDb, though. That's a great credit to have.
It is a great credit to have. Now, it's very grainy footage. Who knows? But his big speech, when he's standing at the side of the graveyards with all these Fenians standing around, he ends it with, this is the last bit, he says, "Our foes are strong and wise and wary, but strong and wise and weary as they are, they cannot undo the miracles of God who ripens in the hearts of young men the seeds sown by the young men of a former generation. And the seeds sown by the young men of 65 and 67 are coming to their miraculous ripening today. Rulers and defenders of the realm had need to be wary if they would guard against such processes. Life springs from death, and from the graves of patriot men and women spring live nations. The defenders of this realm have worked well in secret and in the open. They think that they have pacified Ireland. They think that they have purchased half of us and intimidated the other half. They think that they have foreseen everything, think that they have provided against everything. But the fools, they have left us our Fenian dead. And while Ireland holds these graves, Ireland unfree shall never be at peace." and people go fucking ballistic.
People go, what was that you were saying about ripening young boys?
What the hell's ripening young boys? What do you say? And women? What the fuck? Who knows? One of the more famous bits of prose in the Fenian catalogue. The fools.
Because I want to know, did he write that down as 3?
Yeah. Pause for applause. Pause for gasps. The triplicates. Now, very, very good. I think we've talked about this in the Michael Collins episode, but so that's 1915, before 1916. In September of 1917, Thomas Ashe dies, one of the other commandants who isn't executed after 1916.
Yeah.
He dies in a hunger strike in September after getting released from Frognock. And there's a kind of mirrored situation where he's being buried. Again, you've got death of a famous Fenian figure. Big opportunity to get the word out. You got a load of Fenians here, and everyone who remembered Pearse's famous words. Collins walks up after they've done like the 20-gun salute, shooting over the grave. He says, "Nothing additional remains to be said. That volley which we have heard is the only speech which is proper to make above the grave of a dead Fenian."
It's very good. It's a very good way to not write a speech.
Very good way to not write a speech. Considering how, and that's only the end of Pearse's speech. It's very long. But it's impassioned, it's beautiful, it's well written, rousing spirit. Leads into 1916. This
but there's
not better. It's just got up and shooting a gun and be like, no more talking, lads.
Wasn't that cool? Look, now watch me hit dingers.
Yeah. Anyway, a thing of beauty. People go ballistic. People love this speech, and that is going to be the ending point of that episode. So now he's poised as kind of like the public face of the Rising. He's high up in the Irish Volunteers. He's high up in the IRB. He's given this big speech. Everyone who hasn't gone and fought with John Redmond in World War I, who's still on the island and still interested in getting a bit of fucking work done, they're gung-ho and ready to follow him. And then, Tom Clark and all the rest of the boys in the shadows. But there you go. What do you think of your hero, Patrick Pearse, now? Don't talk about all the poems he wrote about little boys. That's for
that's for
behind the paywall.
And who's to say if that was even a bad thing?
Honestly, I don't know. There's so much. It's really hard to get.
Maybe the British.
You have to form your own. What we'll do is I'll read the poems on behind the paywall, and you can just listen to them and decide yourself without any context about what life was like at the time. He doesn't have. So you'll notice I haven't mentioned anything about any of his relationships or anything, and that's not because I hate talking about relationships in stories. He doesn't have any. He's in his 30s now. He's a famous writer, but there's not even a hint of a romantic entanglement.
Yeah. If he was a musician or a different type of artist, people would say, he was just dedicated to the music.
But even there's not even a he never took a wife. He was too busy. But luckily, him and his friend Tom, to save money, they just lived together and I'd chip in around the house. And Pearse, he was very frugal. He only had one bed. He thought 2 was a waste of money.
Keep the heat.
The fire was always on. Now that you mention it, but he said they just snuggled together for warmth, body heat. But Pearse. I don't even think there's any of that. There's no they were cousins. I think he was just. Yeah.
Interesting.
Anyway, listen. That
could have been off doing whatever he wanted with men or women or boys of questionable ages.
No, maybe.
But he was part of multiple secret organizations and planning the Rising. Yeah. He kept that secret. So why couldn't he keep?
Yeah. He's part of. He had a good way with words. He was part of the public face, part of the private face. But there you go now. We'll be back next week for part 2. You can listen to bonus stuff over on Headstuff Plus. We'll probably try and re-edit some of the other 1916 stuff we've done. Put that up there. And all right. Good luck.
See you after.
This show is part of the Headstuff Podcast Network, a hub for the creative and the curious. Shows are produced in association with Headstuff and the Podcast Studios Dublin. Find out more or become a member at headstuffpodcasts.com.